The silent ban, the great chamber of the Galactic Council shimmered with blue and silver light. Hundreds of alien delegates filled the curved rows, their scaled, feathered, and metallic faces glowing in the soft illumination of floating orbs. Above them, massive holoscreens flickered with lines of law and treaties, each one shaping the fate of entire civilizations. The chamber was alive with sound, buzzing wings, metallic hums, guttural clicks, all blending into a restless sea of voices. At the center, on a raised platform, the Supreme Speaker stood tall. His elongated limbs glistened, and his voice echoed through the chamber. Order, today we finalize the ban that has stood for 3 centuries. Today we seal it into eternal law. Humans shall remain forbidden. Laughter rippled across the chamber. Some delegates pounded their claws on the railing. Others hissed in approval. The name of humanity had become nothing more than a punchline. They were storytellers, sneered a crimson-skinned delegate, his golden eyes narrowing. Fragile flesh and short lives. They thought their myths could make them mighty. Arrogant, little species, another added, his voice like grinding stones, always reaching for the stars, never realizing they were children playing with fire. Mockery spread like wildfire. Alien tongues twisted the word human into a curse, a joke, an insult. For centuries, no one had seen a human, and many doubted they had ever been as dangerous as old records claimed. Yet among the noise, a faint tremor ran through the chamber. One of the great holoscreens above the council table flickered. For a moment its light dimmed, then burst into static. The speaker slammed a claw against the console. "Cut that feed, resume proceedings." But the screen did not obey. Instead, it pulsed with white light, and then, slowly, an image appeared. A human face. Gasps spread across the chamber. The laughter died. Hundreds of eyes turned upward, unblinking. It was the face of a man, battered, scarred, and weathered by time. His eyes were sharp, filled with a fire that pierced the silence of the hall. His uniform was torn, streaked with ash, and behind him burned a sky of smoke and flame. "Impossible," whispered one delegate, her crystal body trembling. "Humans are extinct." The speaker's voice shook with sudden anger. "This is a breach, shut it down." No one moved. No one breathed. The screen crackled and the human face spoke. The voice was deep, broken by static, yet every word was clear. "You banned us, you mocked us, you erased us from your records, but we remain." The chamber went still. Even the sound of breathing vanished. The human's eyes narrowed. His tone carried no fear, only weight. "You thought the ban would silence us, but we do not vanish in silence. We live in stories. We live in the echoes you cannot erase." Delegate scales shifting nervously hissed, "This is a trick, a simulation." But deep inside, none of them believed it. The image was too real, the voice too sharp. The council chamber, once alive with arrogance, had become frozen in dread. The human leaned closer to the screen. Flames roared behind him. "Mock the ban, laugh at our weakness, but remember this." His voice dropped to a whisper, yet it carried like thunder. "Humans always return." The screen flickered again, and the face dissolved into static. For a long, unbroken moment, no one in the chamber dared to speak. The laughter that had filled the room minutes before seemed like a memory from another age. Finally, a trembling voice broke the silence. "If they are gone, why do their words still shake us?" The question hung in the air like a shadow. Echoes of humanity. The council chamber did not recover quickly. For several moments, the silence itself felt heavier than the steel walls around them. The Supreme Speaker tried to steady his trembling voice. "This intrusion will be erased. A simple error in the archives. Nothing more." But no one believed him. The face on the screen had not been an error. It had been a memory carved in fire. Suddenly, the holoscreen came alive again. This time, it did not show the man's face. Instead, it unfolded into moving images, fragments of history long buried. The first image showed Earth, blue oceans, and white clouds swirled around a green planet glowing with beauty. Many delegates hissed or clicked their tongues. They had only seen Earth in forbidden archives, always shown as a dead world, abandoned and forgotten. Yet here it was, alive, radiant, proud. Then the images shifted. War, chaos, humanity's struggles filled the screen. Flashes of starships falling apart in burning skies. Men and women in torn armor fighting against odds no sane mind would accept. A pilot guiding a broken craft straight into an enemy dreadnought, sacrificing everything to save a colony. Soldiers standing side by side, holding a crumbling wall against waves of monstrous invaders. The chamber stirred uneasily. These were not simulations. These were real records, untouched and unpolished. One delegate with silver wings whispered, "They fought, even when they had no chance." Another spat bitterly, "Madness. That is all it was, madness." But deep inside, the delegates knew it was not madness. It was something else, something far more dangerous. The images shifted again. A human mother, holding her child as fire rained from the skies. A scientist refusing to abandon her dying crew, sealing them inside an escape pod while she stayed behind. A group of humans, barely armed, standing in front of an alien army, not to win, but to buy time for others to escape. The hall grew colder with every passing second. "They should have been erased long ago," growled a delegate with iron horns. "This endurance, it is poison. If their kind survived, they would spread again." But his words lacked confidence. His claws drummed nervously on the table. The Supreme Speaker raised his voice. "This is an infection of the archives. We will destroy it immediately." The screen ignored him. A voice, human, calm and steady, filled the chamber. Not the soldier from before, but another recording. "They called us weak. They laughed at our broken ships, our fragile bodies, our short lives. Yet we endured. We adapted. Where others saw walls, we found doors. Where others saw endings, we wrote beginnings." The voice echoed like a blade through the silence. Council members shifted, uneasily. Their arrogance was cracking piece by piece. For centuries they had mocked the ban on humans as nothing more than symbolic. A law passed in fear, preserved out of habit. But the screen was showing them something else. It was showing them why the ban had been written in the first place. The images on the screen grew darker. They showed battles not only of war but of survival. Frozen colonies where humans clawed through ice storms just to keep a single flame alive. Deserts where they walked barefoot under burning suns carrying water for their sick. Underground shelters where songs were sung even as bombs fell above. "They lived," a delegate muttered, voice shaking. "They lived even when the galaxy wanted them dead." One by one, the laughter that had once filled the hall was replaced by whispers of unease. The speaker slammed his claw again. "Enough! Shut this down!" But the screen refused. Instead, it played one final scene. A human pilot, young and bloodied, sat inside a burning cockpit. Smoke filled the chamber around him. He was dying, yet he smiled. His voice cracked, but his words were clear. "To any who see this, remember, humanity is not measured by how long we live, but by how far we reach. You may erase our bodies, but you will never erase our will." The screen went black. The chamber remained frozen. No one spoke. No one dared. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council did not laugh at the mention of humans. They were silent. The forgotten oath. The silence in the council chamber lingered like a storm that had not yet broken. No one moved. No one dared to breathe too loudly. The hollow screens above them glowed faintly, as if waiting for permission to continue. The Supreme Speaker's voice shook with anger. "This is nothing but manipulation. Old records twisted to frighten us. Humans are gone, their ashes were scattered long ago." But even he did not sound convinced. Then, without warning, the screens flared once again. This time, they did not show battles or dying pilots. Instead, the image shifted to a vast desert plain under two suns. A council of humans stood there. Leaders, soldiers, workers, and children gathered together in a circle. Their clothes were torn, their bodies exhausted, but their eyes burned with fire. A woman stepped forward. Her face was streaked with dust, her voice hoarse, yet her words carried across the chamber with undeniable strength. "We swear this to the stars," she declared. "Erase us, ban us, scatter us across the void. But if ever the galaxy forgets the meaning of courage, our voices will return, not as flesh, not as armies, but as stories." Gasps filled the alien chamber. The words struck like thunder. An elder delegate, his body shimmering like glass, whispered, This is no ordinary speech. This was an oath." The screen continued. The humans in the vision raised their hands together. They spoke in unison, their voices layered into one. "Stories are our weapons. Hope is our shield. Remember us, even when you fear us." The chamber shook with their words, though no physical tremor had touched it. The alien delegates looked around nervously, as if expecting the human oath to crawl off the screen and wrap around their very souls. One delegate hissed, his spines rattling, "It is witchcraft. A curse left to haunt us." But another muttered, "No, it is worse. It is memory." The screen shifted again. It showed an alien race long forgotten, scaled, four-eyed creatures who once fought beside humans. In the vision, their leader clasped a human soldier's hand, sealing an alliance. His words rang out clear, "When the galaxy turns against you, we will not forget." The chamber erupted in confusion. "Impossible," shouted a feathered delegate. "That species vanished before the ban." "Then how did they vanish?" asked another, her eyes wide with fear. "Was it truly extinction? Or did the humans take them with them?" The whispers grew louder, more chaotic. Panic rippled through the hall. For the first time, the council felt a crack in the walls of their arrogance. The Supreme Speaker slammed his staff down, but his command was drowned out by the screen. It now showed something darker, words etched into stone, glowing faintly as if alive. "We do not leave. We wait." The words hung in the air. The chamber seemed to pulse with them. Delegates shifted in their seats. Some clutched their cloaks tighter. Some looked toward the exits, as if wishing to flee. Finally, a voice broke the tension. A young delegate with emerald skin whispered, "They knew this day would come. They swore to rise when we had forgotten why we feared them." Another replied in a hollow tone, "We feared them not for their weapons, but for their will." The chamber fell into uneasy silence once again. The Supreme Speaker tried to regain control. His voice cracked with forced authority. "Fear not. This is nothing but shadow and trickery. If humans had truly lived, they would be here. They are not." But even as he spoke, the screen glowed brighter. The human woman's voice returned, as clear as though she stood in the chamber herself. "Remember the oath. One day when your halls are filled with laughter at our absence, we will come back. Not with ships, not with armies, but with silence. And that silence will make you listen." The screen turned black. The chamber was drowned in dread. No delegate laughed. No one mocked. The word human no longer sounded like a joke. It sounded like a storm waiting at the edge of the galaxy. For centuries they had spoken of the ban as a symbol of victory. But tonight, it no longer felt like victory. It felt like warning. The council chamber remained still. Then, from the farthest, "Bro," a trembling delegate whispered the question none dared to ask aloud. What if the ban was never about protecting us from humans? What if it was about protecting humans from us? No one answered. And in that silence, the oath of humanity lingered, alive, unbroken, eternal. The breaking point. The council chamber had always been a place of arrogance, filled with the noise of powerful voices deciding the fate of entire civilizations. But now the chamber felt smaller, darker, as if the very air had grown heavier. The words of the human oath still lingered, echoing in every mind. Delegates sat stiff in their seats, claws and tendrils twitching nervously. For the first time in centuries, the council looked less like rulers of the galaxy and more like frightened children. The Supreme Speaker pounded his staff against the floor. The sharp crack rang through the chamber. "Enough! These are ghosts!" Dead voices. "They cannot touch us." But his declaration was met with doubt. A feathered delegate leaned forward, her feathers shivering. "If they are gone, why do their words burn like fire? Why does silence follow them like shadow?" Another, his body crystalline, shook his head. "I was taught humans were reckless, foolish. Yet I feel no foolishness in these oaths. I feel only warning." The speaker's eyes blazed. "Warnings from the grave mean nothing." But his fury could not erase the fear crawling across the chamber. Then the hollow screen burst alive again. This time it did not show humans at war or humans making oaths. It showed the council itself, its history, its debates, its mocking laughter about humanity. It was as though the screen had been watching them for centuries, recording every insult, every jeer, every moment of arrogance. Delegates gasped. Some rose from their seats, pointing claws at the screen as if to blame it. "What is this?" roared a scaled alien. "They know us," whispered another, voice trembling. They always knew. The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted over one another. Some demanded the ban be reinforced. Others whispered that perhaps the ban should be lifted, that forgetting humans was the very thing that gave their silence power. A horned delegate slammed his fist onto the table. "Fools! If we lift the ban, we invite them back. Do you not see? If they return, they will spread like wildfire. They will challenge every throne in this chamber." Another stood in defiance. "And if we do not, if we continue mocking them, what then?" They swore their silence would break us. Perhaps it already has. The chamber split. Half shouted for suppression, half for recognition. For the first time, unity shattered. The Supreme Speaker roared above the noise. "Humans are nothing. Their will is ash. They cannot return." But at that very moment, the screen shifted once more. It showed a battlefield, alien landscape scorched by fire. Human soldiers stood bloodied but unbroken, facing enemies many times their size. They were outnumbered, outgunned, their ships shattered. Yet they stood shoulder to shoulder, refusing to fall. The vision zoomed closer to a single human commander, his face streaked with dirt and blood. He looked straight into the recording, as if he were staring into the council chamber itself. His voice was calm. "You will forget us, you will laugh, and then when you believe yourselves safe, our silence will remind you. Not to destroy you, but to teach you what you abandoned." The screen went dark. The chamber froze once again. Then came the breaking. A delegate with steel-plated skin rose suddenly from his seat, his voice sharp with terror. "I will not sit here and wait for ghosts to punish me. I say we burn every archive, destroy every remnant of their history." Another delegate stood to oppose him. "And what will that do? Burn words, burn memory? That is what they want. Do you not understand? Their power is not in weapons, it is in remembrance." The two shouted across the chamber, voices rising into fury. Others joined in, and soon the council was a storm of clashing voices, fear, denial, rage, and panic colliding like lightning. The Supreme Speaker tried to command order, but no one listened. The great chamber of the council, once the heart of galactic law, had become a battlefield of words. In the shadows above, the hollow screens flickered quietly, as if watching, waiting. Amid the chaos, a young delegate whispered so softly that only those nearest could hear. "We thought the ban made us safe, but maybe the ban was never for us. Maybe it was for them." The words spread like wildfire through hushed whispers. Delegates turned pale, their voices breaking. The speaker's staff shook in his hands. His arrogance faltered for the first time. And, above them all, the silence deepened. It was no longer the silence of peace. It was the silence before a storm. The room left silent. The council chamber was in ruins of its own making. Not stone, not steel, but unity. The voices of the delegates had turned into screams, accusations, and desperate cries. What had once been a hall of command now sounded like a marketplace on fire. The Supreme Speaker's staff struck the floor again and again, but the sound was drowned by chaos. His authority, once unshakable, was crumbling in his trembling hands. And then, without warning, the hollow screens lit. Once more, this time there was no battle, no oath, no speeches. Only a single line of text burned across the darkness. You mocked the ban. You erased our names. But silence remembers. The words glowed brighter and brighter until the entire chamber was bathed in white light. The noise of the delegates died instantly, as if the chamber itself commanded them to be still. Then the screen shifted. A single image appeared, simple, yet terrifying. A human hand. It was not holding a weapon. It was not clenched in a fist. It was open, reaching forward, palm up, as if offering something unseen. The chamber froze. The gesture was unmistakable. It was not a threat. It was a challenge. Whispers slithered through the rows. They are gone. No, they are waiting. This is impossible. The hand faded. The screen darkened. And in that darkness, a final voice emerged. Calm, quiet, and yet louder than anything the chamber had ever known. You feared our weapons. You feared our wars. But what you should have feared was this. When we are gone and our voices remain, you will remember. And in remembering, you will hear us again. The last word stretched into silence. The chamber was utterly still. Not a hiss, not a whisper, not the faintest breath disturbed the air. For the first time in the history of the council, every delegate sat in perfect silence. The silence lasted a moment, then another, then another. It stretched until time itself felt broken. Finally, one delegate spoke, but his voice cracked like dry wood. What if they are not extinct? Another answered, her voice trembling. What if they never needed to return in flesh? What if this? She gestured to the screen, to the silence, to the stillness choking the chamber. Is how they return. They yield? Supreme Speaker's mouth opened, but no words came. His voice, once feared across the stars, had abandoned him. His staff slipped from his hand and clattered to the floor, the sound echoing like a gunshot. No one picked it up. The chamber, once full of arrogance and laughter, was broken by silence alone. The screen pulsed one last time, leaving behind a final message. We will return, not when you call us, not when you expect us, but when your silence is loud enough to hear us. The words lingered, glowing faintly until they dissolved into nothing. The chamber was left in total darkness, save for the faint reflection of alien eyes staring into nothing. No one laughed. No one argued. No one dared to move. The ban on humans, once a symbol of triumph, once a joke shared by all, had transformed into something else entirely. It was no longer a law. It was a prophecy, and the prophecy had spoken. The galaxy would never mock humans again, because silence itself had become their voice.